often been asked, how good do the StoneMaker walls last? And really, I mean, they look good, but are they going to fall apart and disintegrate? And of course, we're here to tell you, of course not. We know that our concrete goes to 3280 in 24 hours, but does it go any further? And we know that our testings bring it up to 7,000 and 8,000 PSI. But how does it last, and how much, you know, people are always concerned about air entrainment. Most of the time you put a 2% air entrainment. Our wall builder gives this 8 to 9% air entrainment. So that's why the wall builder is such an incredible product. So yes, there's other products that make things, you know, that are plasticizers, which ours is not a plasticizer, but it brings a water reducing admixture. But ours is more than that. There's so much more than that. And so let's see how the walls really react to the winter time. And you can look here. This wall is almost 5 years old. As you can see, I have little efflorescence here, as most concrete does have that. But you look at the color, stays pretty good, man. It might have faded a little bit. I have pictures from this when we first installed it. But you can see here, you can't find a crack in this wall. I mean, you can go all the way down the wall and you cannot find a crack in the whole thing. And so that's really phenomenal, especially when you're stretching concrete out almost 70 feet from up there all the way down here. So if you go down here, I'm looking inside the crevices. Now, if it were to crack, it would probably crack in between the control, these control joints in here. But I got moss growing in here. I got, you know, it's just like real effect. And you go all the way down to the bottom of the wall, and here's the bottom, and look, it just really ends up nice. There's no color difference, and there's real rock down there. Here's our concrete. So let's go up to the top and let's look at the larger wall. Now, he has my customer Ed here. Ed was a good guy. He's an insurance guy. Just died this last fall, but I went up and talked to his wife. She's amazing, great customer. And we came out and knocked on their door actually, and this was just all wood. And we have a video, StoneMaker video. We had our crew come in and actually show how we did this wall. And let's go to colors. You know, after a while, you think that colors would really fade, especially after 5 years. You think you'd have a real color fading. But real, I still got that granite look in here, that real earth tone. As you can bring it across here, I got a little bit of efflorescence here, which is easily, you know, you can take that off pretty easily. You can actually get sandpaper and take that off pretty fast. But all in here, the walls look as natural, as good, all the way up to the steps. Now the steps, now they don't use the steps, but we always say don't put salt because of course it's concrete. So if you put salt in there, it's going to break it down. Did it my house, has done it, anybody that does that's what's going to happen. Put a color on here, but it's not the same color as we use here. The StoneMaker color, I do not use the same color here, and there's reasons for that. This, I use more of a cured color. I try to use integral color. There's other things that we do and use as that. We do have a partial crack here, but this crack was here from the very beginning when we first put it in. And it's not a crack or structural crack, it's just a parching crack that came across here when they added a little bit more concrete. When they added a little more concrete, it was just kind of a parch crack. But that's been here since we started. But you look along the whole thing here, I have really no visible signs of cracks. And it looks pretty good. So there you have it, StoneMaker walls. I think we're almost 5 foot high here. We didn't get engineers. There was no engineering permit, plans, nothing like this. Here in Bedford, New Hampshire, you got to, once you get to 6 feet, is when you got to do it. So I could have done a wall all the way up to the top, but we made 2 levels, 2-footer up there, 2.5-footer, and a 5-foot here. So we're over 6 foot, but because we brought it back, we don't need any permitting on it. This was done probably in the middle of summertime, and we carved it. It started to go a little bit because it was kind of hot. But we still had plenty of time to carve it and texture it, and man, it came out sweet, and it still looks just amazing. Happy customers. You know, I get stuff, some people on the internet, oh, that stuff's breaking down. I don't know who you are that your wall's breaking down. If it was done right, then it's going to stay right, and that's all. I have people like Homeland Security from the B2 base down in Missouri who are using our product, that have used our product. We've actually demonstrated the product to them because they were so amazed about how we did it. They wanted to see a wall done with no forms. Remember, even my architects that look at this, they say, well, yes, we'll engineer it, but you know, show us the form, and they're looking for forms and stuff like that. This was no forms. The minute a lot of engineers had seen this without forms, they didn't want anything to do with it because they didn't understand it. This is, yes, a new way to do it, but we've been doing this now for 12 years, 15 years. and it works awesome. And now it's kind of got around, and all their dealers, close to 1,000 dealers worldwide with StoneMakers, and it has just increased and increased. Do we have a lot of guys that don't do a good job with this? Absolutely. But yet we have a lot of guys that get this and do it really good. I have some amazing carvers that have gotten this and taken it far beyond what I could have. And so I wanted to show a little bit on the durability and how amazing this product is. So let's go look at some more walls. Okay, we're at another project that was done almost 9 years ago, and you think the color would all fade off and come off, and if you look over here, the color has just stayed really good. Now the problem you had with this is they had massive amounts of water that come off the top of this big cliff rock, and this is that's all real rock there, and it comes down and you can't find any cracks in this wall. And I mean, we get like 20 below down here in New Hampshire, 30 below, and it gets pretty nasty. And so all of that water should have already frozen and busted this thing out, but there's not a crack that you can find. Even in the steps that we poured, all of this in here, steps go all the way up. But you look at this, we did this all the way up here. Even this one here is concrete. All this is concrete going in here. This is all carved concrete. And it looks great. We got up here and we got a grinder. We carved his foundation to look just like the wall. So, pretty creative, I think. Boy, those are the days of really getting in there and doing that. So there's one of our walls. Let's go see another one and see really how these things last. This one I haven't seen this in almost 9 years. Well, there's hundreds of walls that we can show you, and we will show you. But right now we're going to show you as the evening sets here. We want to show you several walls that we have. This is a wall that I installed at my house, and it's almost been close to 11, maybe 12 years. And you can see has some of the color faded off, very little. Here's the only rock I see you've had faded color, and this is after 11 years, and it's really not with the color that we even use now. This was a different type of coloring process I had, but it's real close. Very little efflorescence, although you got snow and ice, and actually the house is draining all up in here. This continued to get water, and you can't find a crack. I will tell you there is a crack in this wall, okay? And it's right over here. It's not here. Here it is, right here. So see the crack in here? And there is a crack in the wall. This is a StoneMaker wall that has a crack in it. Oh my goodness. And so here it is, right there. All the way down here after 11 years. Now, is there any other cracks? No, there's not. That's it. And you can see here, look at the colors on here. This has not been recolored. I didn't recolor. As you can tell, I haven't. You can see the mold and the moss, not the mold, but the moss growing in between here. So naturally it has aged, and it has antiqued by itself. And you come back over here, you got all kinds of, stuff growing here and through it. You can still see the granite effect, how nice it looks. Now, I will show you here. These are my steps, and I did these steps the same time we did the wall. And these steps, they still have the color on them, but you can see that a lot of the, they've been beat up over the years just with salt being put on them. You can see the mold, the moss in between the crevices where I carved it and stuff like that. The lights don't work anymore, but you can see in my steps here, the colors have stayed, the steps have stayed, but they've acted like any concrete would act if you put salt on them. And we have to put salt because there's no way to get it there. So much so it has all the natural green, the moss. Look at the thick moss growing in between here. And this wall's for 11 years. It's going to last another 11, 12, or however many years. I think it'll outlast the house. So if there's any doubt that you think that the walls will not last, those of you guys in Sacramento or in Florida, think again. This is in some really brutal cold over here. Some real, and it's not even the cold, it's the freeze thaw. We get, a lot of freeze thaw cycles, and that's what tears concrete up, and that's what really does it. That's why air entrainment in concrete is so incredibly necessary and essential. And that's what this has, 8% air entrainment. That's a big factor. Almost 730 yards of concrete we've poured here. You'd be hard pressed to find more than 3-4 cracks in the whole thing. And concrete cracks, we know that, but you're going to see how minimally it cracks with our product.